Hi, this is Matt Drahos with Western Rivers Fly Fisher. We're going to do another fly today. Today I'm going to tie the Home Intruder streamer. It's a big lead-eyed Arctic fox and marabou streamer. Good during high water, which we're going to have a lot of for a while. So I'm going to tie this up. It's a really simple tie, should be fairly quick. I've already mounted a 5263 streamer hook in the vise. You could use a 700 TMC as well, or maybe even a B10F Stinger. There's a couple of different hooks you could choose from. But we're going to start by wrapping a couple of brass eyes, in this case, at about the 1/3 point on the hook. We're going to figure eight this on, get it kind of locked down. We're using fairly heavy gauge thread. I'm using UTC 140. Pretty beefy stuff. But we wrap around it a bunch of times, and then we're going to figure eight underneath the wraps, underneath the eyes. You can see how I'm dipping under and around the eyes as I go around. That tightens them up and keeps them from twisting on the hook shank quite as easily. They're still twisting, so we're going to hit it a couple more times, because that drives me crazy. But that's just pretty much there. So we'll bring the thread back, and what we're going to do is we'll start with a single blood quill plume of marabou, and I'm going to keep this tie very simple. Tie in the plume about 2 inches back, 2.5 inches. This is a fairly sizable fly, so we're going to wrap that down. Okay. And then we're going to trim this off. Tie on the butts a little bit. We'll cover over all this stuff later. And I think this is basically a root beer colored marabou. Could be brown, but this will work. So again, I'm going to take another plume. This time I'm putting it on the other side. So I have kind of a top and a bottom. This fly will ride hook point up. So we're going to have the darker color on the top, the lighter color on the bottom, like bait fish do. Okay. Now, we're just going to, got this little lump. This isn't a pretty fly, but there's a lot of bulk to it, so we're not going to worry too much about tying everything beautiful. Okay, now we're going to take some Arctic fox fur, which I have set over here. This is Humor Arctic fox. This is a long Arctic fox fur. Some stuff that you buy is really short and stubby, and it won't work for this fly. You need to get good stuff for this. So what we'll do is, this is basically the tail section. It's been split down the middle. So what we're going to do is we're going to take a small wad of this hair. We're going to make it just a little bit shorter than the marabou we tied in. I'm going to take and trim a bunch of it off. Now this hair has a lot of underfur, so I'm going to strip this out. And then I'm going to tie it down in one spot here, a couple of turns, trim that off. And we're going to repeat on the other side of the fly. Same step, same scenario. This uses up a lot of fox fur, so you can go through it fairly quickly. Again, they're really fluffy at the base here, so you need to strip this out. Normally I just hand strip it. I want bulk, but I don't want weight. Arctic fox fur doesn't absorb much water, so it stays very dry and light to cast, relatively speaking. The lead eyes and the hook size are the biggest problems with this fly from a casting standpoint. So we've got another layer. Now you could do this in a few different layers. I'm going to keep it fairly simple today. Eyes are twisting on me. I didn't get them roped down tight enough. That's okay. In the end run, it won't matter. It'll all be hidden away. So I'm going to take one more shot of Arctic fox. I want to fill this fly in a little bit deeper, so it's a little heavier in the body. Again, stripping the underfur off. Hook it down, a couple of turns. Now this may not be exactly the recipe that the original tire uses, but this is going to be a reasonable facsimile. trim that off. Flip it back over. Couple of turns. Trim the butts. Oops, got a little bit of my fur there. Just tie that back. Okay, so we're starting to build out that fat profile. And then what I'm going to do at this stage is I'm going to add a couple of grizzly hackles to the side. This gives it a little bit of a lateral line and a profile. The original tie uses an olive grizzly. I'm just going to use a standard grizzly because that's what I have in front of me. And I don't really care that much. It'll work. Just picking the right hackle here. It'll take me 1 second. Okay. That one's a little hammered. Let's use this one. So, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to size this against the hook. I want it to be just a little shorter than the tail. I'm going to take this, tying it on the hook point upside. A couple of turns to wrap it and lock it onto the sides. Take the other one. This one's sized a little bit closer already. That will go about the same length, approximately. Tie it down. Notice I didn't even bother trimming this. This is all just going to get nipped off, and tying on the barbs themselves will actually keep the feather locked on a little better. Okay, now I'm going to advance my thread in front of the hook eye. And once again, we're going to repeat the same basic step that we just did, which is to take a tuft of Arctic foxtail, nip it off, strip off the under fur. You can save the under fur for later. It's actually a pretty good dubbing if you want a coarse dubbing. I usually recommend using a dubbing loop for it. I try to keep it centered on there. This may be a little bit thin. I may add one more stack to it. I want it a little bit bigger in profile. All the guys nowadays want to fish giant streamers, and this is kind of a giant. But it's a single hook model, so it's a little easier and faster to tie than an articulated. And then if you're losing them with great frequency, it's a little bit less painful than losing giant articulated flies. But I still think they're cooler. Okay, so I'm going to take another stack here, hook it down, a couple turns. Now we've got that full profile again. Now we're going to flip it back over. We're going to cover this side. This gives a large, wide profile. Again, the Arctic fox fur, I don't want to strip all the under fur out because that's what gives it the bulk. But at the same time, just from a tying standpoint, it's easier to tie in a small point. Most of that under fur removed, so we'll take and pull that out. It's a pretty coarse piece. I don't know if you guys can see that or if it's in focus, but basically you just pull out all the extra stuff. And then bring my thread slightly forward here. And we'll hook it right on the top here. And then we're going to add a couple of turns of flash. Notice I just physically manhandle it. They want to turn, so I'm just going to physically handle the material, put it where I want it to be. This isn't one of those really spectacularly technical fly. It's just repeated steps. So now we're going to wrap down the front a little bit. We're going to start to build a head here. I may do one more layer of Arctic fox again in front just to fill it out to the eye. It's probably better to use more small clumps than fewer large clumps. It'll tie in cleaner. But again, each of you can choose at your leisure to do it either the easy way or the hard way. Okay, so got the basic bait fish shape built out.
Thanks so much.
We're going to nip this off. I'm going to turn. Okay, a couple of turns. The basic shape. Now, the original dressing calls for UV crystal flash and some strands of copper flashaboo. For sake of brevity, I'm going to eliminate the UV crystal flash, and the fact is I don't have any right in front of me. But I'm just going to take some flash boost strands, rope them down on the top, take them all, pull them over, fold them to the back. I'll give you more than enough flash for the fly. And then we'll just tie in a head. In a moment here, I'll whip finish it. Now this fly is a huge profile in the water. It sinks like a rock depending on the size eyes and the type of eyes that you use on it. But it's a good staple type streamer for the box. And we'll definitely fish this time of year because we have a lot of water. Alright. So, colors are slightly different, but basically you have a Home Invader. Mine's a little fuller than the store copy, but it'll work. Both of them will fish. Slightly different color shade, but that's alright. So, thank you very much. Hope the instructional video was useful. If you guys have any questions, as usual, call us at 801-521-6424 or check us out on the web at wrflyfisher.com or on Facebook or Twitter. Or come on in if you want to. Talk to you guys later. Thanks. Have a good day.